The reparations debate has continued following an embarrassing appearance at the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa, where the Prime Minister was ignored when leaders included a clause in the final communiqué which called for dialogue on the question of reparatory justice. Now, Labour MPs Clive Lewis and Diane Abbott have launched a scathing attack on Sir Keir Starmer for adopting a colonial mindset on reparations after he dismissed calls for them. Well, I'm joined now by the anti-racism activist Iman Ayton. Well, Iman, thanks so much for coming in. You've had a run to get here, which is noble of you.
And I'm very grateful that you waited for me. I'm sure you were on time, as usual. You're very meticulous in that respect, but thank you for waiting for me.
Thank you for being here. It seems to me that the Labour Party is in a terrible muddle about this, because Keir Starmer clearly doesn't want to do it, because the British voter does not want to spend billions of pounds on reparations, and yet the left of the Labour Party is very keen to do it. So how does he square this circle?
Many reasons, Jacob. I think it's really important to just realise that this figure, so we've seen many different figures from 200 billion to...
17 trillion, I think, is the highest I've seen.
18.8.
Oh, God, it goes up and up.
18.8, if you don't mind me correcting you, sir.
No, of course not.
18.8, that was from the Brattle Group report. So we have many different figures being thrown around as of late. And I really want people to realise that this figure, whether it be 200 million or billion to 18.8 billion. This is to do with slavery and colonialism. So I just want to make clear that this country, in terms of colonialism, they transported 3.3 Africans across the Atlantic. And then, of course, they transitioned, I said this on Jeremy Vine's show, they transitioned from the slavery in terms of the physical and psychological violence to the political, economical and cultural domination of people, which is colonialism. And they, the British, colonised 22 countries in Africa over 173 years. They also colonised 15 or over 15 countries in the Caribbean. So when we think about these figures that have been thrown about as of late, it's easy to square it. It's quite understandable when you amalgamate all of the information from slavery to colonialism.
But shouldn't they actually be paying us? Because some of these Caribbean countries are very prosperous. They've done extremely well. And they did well because the British gave them the rule of law and democracy and capitalism. And this has been incredibly successful. The British Empire was an amazing force for good, for civilization and for raising people's standards of living. So why should we have to pay for doing that? Surely we should be paid.
I think that's a very bold question to ask a strong black woman on your channel, Jacob. And I'll actually pose a question to you. Would you say that about Jews? So I'll just give the context. First and foremost, one could easily argue that the Jewish community, the Israeli Jews, benefited from the Holocaust. And
but I don't think you could. I think
allow me to finish. Allow me to finish. Let me bring it home, Jacob. Let me bring it home. They benefited from Holocaust and Hitler due to the fact that they were given the state of Israel. Their life expectancy improved, and last but not least, their GDP improved. Israel's GDP improved as a result of Germany giving reparations in 1952. So would you say on national TV about the Jews that they should be happy and should be thanking Hitler and the Holocaust, Amy and David, for what they have gone through because they have benefited in terms of money? I would argue that Amy and David, Jacob wouldn't say this about Jews, but he's saying it about black people. So let me know what you're saying here, Jacob.
About the whole history of the British colonies, which was stunningly successful. What you've said about the Holocaust is just nonsense.
Amy's ignored that, hasn't he?
No, I'm answering it.
Point,
because the British, in the Balfour Declaration, said there should be a homeland for the Jewish people before the Holocaust. That wasn't a consequence of the Holocaust. It was British policy beforehand. Okay, so what you're saying is simply historically wrong.
No. If you're going to say that I'm historically wrong, no problem.
Let's go back to slavery and the topic under discussion. Let's go back to what we're talking about.
You want me to ignore your point. I want to address the point that you just made.
And it wasn't just to do with the
Balfour Declaration. Let me just be clear. Their life expectancy, Jewish people's life expectancy
was ruined because they were all killed.
It improved due to the fact they were given the state of Israel.
I'm afraid your argument is unbelievably...
And Israel was given reparations in 1952 and their country improved and thrived as a result. So even if you want to ignore the fact that they were given the state of Israel, we have to acknowledge the fact that Jewish people's life improved and the country
The only
improved
comparison
as a result in terms
is
of
that
reparations.
Israel was the Palestine mandate and was run by the
Jacob, you're
British.
not listening,
So if
then.
it's a success, it's a success of Britain,
Jacob, you're not
not
listening.
anything to do with
Jacob,
the
you're not
horrors of
listening.
Germany. But it's the British who stopped slavery.
Okay.
No country in the world had ever tried to stop slavery before the British did it
May I interject?
in the beginning of the 19th century. And
That's actually inaccurate. May I
who
interject?
tried to stop it?
Okay, so first and foremost, let's just deal with the fact I appreciate that, and you know what, I don't want to be combative. It's a natural state of mind when dealing with these types of arguments. It's a natural state of mind. And I want to be honest with you. I respect you, and I think that you are highly intelligent and articulate, and I want to give you what is due in terms of a conversation. So let me just retort by saying, you asked me the question, no one else stopped slavery before the British. That was your question.
Yes.
I want to be honest in saying, if we really want to be pedantic, which is my favourite way of life. Denmark. So wait, allow me to finish, sir.
Right.
Allow me to finish. I know we have limited time,
we've got very little
you
time.
asked me a question.
But Denmark didn't have the Royal Navy.
Right.
Denmark may have wanted to do it, but it was the Royal Navy. It was our power and our wealth that did it.
The Royal Navy, which is the West African Squadron. I know. Can I just finish my point, if you wouldn't mind? I'll just say this very briefly. Denmark, in terms of, I think it was Christian VII of Denmark, actually opposed slavery and announced that it would end in regards to the Danish West Indies. So in other words, Denmark would stop slavery in the West Indies, and they stopped that. Allow me to finish.
But we can go even earlier.
And they finished that in 1792. So Denmark, that was 45 years before the Brits. Right. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then Portugal. I'm sorry, I have to look at Amy because she knows what I want.
We're going to have to finish, unfortunately.
Amy, I'm going to talk, Jacob.
We're going to have to finish, but you're ignoring the Emperor Charles V in the 16th century.
We're going to have to go. So we have Portugal, we have Denmark that finished or tried to abolish the slave trade before Britain. That is a fact. Denmark and Portugal.
We've got to go to Patrick, but the British abolished it. We had the Royal Navy. Welcome back to State of the Nation. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, addressed the nation today ahead of the budget on Wednesday.
The foundations fixed, public services renewed, a country rebuilt by investment, released from decline, returned once more to the service of working people. Now, that is the course we set this week. That is the driving purpose of this government, and that is the change that we will deliver.
Well, that's all very exciting, isn't it? But how does he plan to do it? Well, if you're a working person, apparently you won't be affected by the tax rises that are set to raise roughly £35 billion. But the question is, who is a working person? Well, the Prime Minister seems to struggle with defining different categories of people.
A woman can have a penis.
Nick, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with...
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
A woman can have a penis.
I don't think that discussing this issue in this way helps anyone in the long run.
Not only does the Labour Party appear to believe the woman is defined as someone who identifies as such, but apparently a working person is defined as someone who identifies as such too.
But I also know that the working people of this country know exactly who they are, and that they are the golden thread that runs through our agenda.
Unfortunately, this doesn't provide much clarity. When asked about the definition yesterday, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, revealed that Cabinet Ministers count as working people, that is, people earning more than £150,000, the top 2% of earners. Meanwhile, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Pat McFadden, has said that working people is not the right way of looking at this. That's just a brilliant way of politicians getting out of awkward questions. Just tell the interviewer, we don't like to look at it this way. Let's look at it another way, according to my press release. It is really rather convenient. So the government is going to base its budget on a group of people whom it cannot define. I rather like this idea of self-defining. If you define as a working person, then surely you can't be taxed. So then they get pressed on it and they ask the media to stop asking questions. Perhaps like their bung-master-in-chief, Lord Alley, they think such questions are not nice. Or could it be because the government is about to betray its core promise at the election? The government is reported to be about to increase employer national insurance contributions in a clear breach of its manifesto, which stated We will ensure taxes on working people will be kept as low as possible. Labour will not increase taxes on working people, which is why we will not increase national insurance, the basic, higher or additional rates of income tax, or VAT. Trying to pretend that national insurance paid by employers is not a tax on working people is bogus. Employers only have a limited amount of money, and the money they pay on employing people comes from a single pot. The government is also expected to increase fuel duty, a tax that especially hits working people. Bear in mind that nearly 70% of working people commute by car. This metropolitan Islington-centric government assumes the whole country is the same as London, where only 29% commute by car. But it isn't. So this is again a tax on working people. And when so few civil servants bother to go into the office, it's a particularly pernicious attack on car-commuting private sector workers who pay the salaries of idle civil servants. Other tax the government is expected to implement is a continued freeze on income tax threshold, a stealth tax that hits everyone at every income percentile. The Tories, unfortunately, did this as a means of raising revenue, which Labour at the time criticised, but is now going to do, which is a de facto tax rise on working people. So it seems that Labour has broken more of its promises, and workers, strivers and entrepreneurs will all be hit. But cheer up! The Prime Minister has some respite for you.
Will also be the first budget delivered by a woman ever. That is a moment of pride.
Well, bear in mind, the Chancellor is the second Lord of the Treasury, and the Conservatives have had 3 First Lords of the Treasury who have been women. The First Lord of the Treasury, as you all know, is also Prime Minister. Let me know your views. Email mailmog@gbnews.com.